This is Johnny Bluestar. Welcome to Threshold, a global media event. Is the universe just a random dance of atoms, or is it a manifestation of a supremely intelligent architect? Can its purpose, or our purpose here on Earth, be adequately assessed? Can we commune with it, know its intentions, cooperate with its direction? Here, we define threshold as a gateway state of awareness, allowing mankind to cross into a place of real cognition. Threshold allows us to approach questions of higher reality through the door of experience, rather than mere belief. Welcome to Threshold, where we tear away the veil from commercial media, bringing our audience and participants into another realm of reality and enhanced communication. Welcome back to Threshold Radio. This program is called Who's Minding the Planet, featuring the thoughts and music of Zave Nathan, as well as the songs of Zave and his wife, Blazak. Both of them are joining us to share their insight as to our current situation on this planet. Threshold Radio is brought to you by New Galaxy Enterprises. My company, New Galaxy Enterprises, is a California corporation specializing in the creation of media and promotional content. We are focused on original, innovative projects that are good for humanity. These projects could be nonfiction books or novels, fictional screenplays or documentary content, websites and website content, commercial advertising content for print, audio, or video products on the internet, television, or radio, musical scores for advertising, television, or film, video, audio editing, etc. We want to promote products and projects that support the environment, encourage a healthy experience in living, developing, nurturing, and useful technology, and offering platforms for positive, socially constructive entertainment or informative, transformative media. Our experience in creating a variety of products like this is rather vast, and we offer client-based and collaborative products, as well as the opportunity of active investors to join us in the creation and promotion of proprietary products, some of which are in latter stages of development. For more information, go to www.newgalaxyenterprises.com. That's www.newgalaxyenterprises.com. If you're interested in talking to us, just fill out the contact sheet and we will get back with you.
So I think that's where we are right.
Well, I'm going to pass to another aspect of our conversation, and I don't mean it to be too incendiary, but I want to talk about the Second Amendment. It's interesting that in the original formulation of the Second Amendment, it talks about a militia, not an individual. In fact, it says a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Now, later on, it was interpreted by the Supreme Court to confer the right to bear arms to the individual. And for me, both things are well and good. But if in fact the terrorist threat increases to the point of Paris and Brussels, I think a well-regulated, locally based militia may be necessary.
No, it is.
Okay. Well, I was being softer in my way of phrasing it. There have been many examples in the recent past, but not for the same reasons. And there have been militias that I don't think necessarily were really patriotic in the sense that I mean it. But anyway, I haven't fully formulated this idea, and perhaps you have. And explain to us how you would see these local militias being developed.
You know, I was raised in a country where the gun regulation is extreme, and
as in you can't have a gun at all.
so Yasser Arafat. I remember 1972 in Paris. The attacks, the bombs in Paris. Do you remember that?
In 1972?
1972, the bus.
No.
Okay,
I don't
Paris.
remember it.
Bombs by the PLO, Palestine Organization, Yasser Arafat.
Oh, really? In Paris?
Bombs in Paris, in the bus station. So people were like, for no reason, pow! Apparent no reason, pow! So, oh my God, terrorism, yes, PLO. So I was like, Yasser Arafat, Palestine, Paris. What the heck? Why in Paris? And later on, there were an interview with Arafat, and he was asked, but this is Palestine, and you got Israel and Egypt, and so why Paris? And his answer was, because it's the soft belly of Europe.
Wow.
And I went, okay, all right, okay. So I remember that who has the gun dictates. Who doesn't have the gun gets screwed. End of story. The rest is blah, blah, blah. So I came in this country and I learned about, when I became a citizen, I learned about the Second Amendment. And I went, wow, this is pretty cool. This is really good because that keeps the government in check. The citizen will go, oh, no. And you can send us your military, your cops, whatever. Dude, we got guns. Our right to bear arms will not be infringed. We got ammunition. We'll cap it in your butt. Don't do it. So this is where we are now. I think that the president that is in charge now was put in to suppress, dismantle, and disempower the Second Amendment. A society that doesn't have weapons, a citizen who doesn't have a material way to defend their physical life against oppression, this oppression will come with a weapon. If the citizen doesn't have weapons to protect himself, will be enslaved and will be killed. So I thought, well, as long as America, let's say United States, in their Constitution and a Bill of Rights will enforce the Second Amendment, the American citizens have a chance to survive face-to-face against a tyrannical government. If the guns are being taken away, if the Second Amendment is thrown in the garbage, and our government, Obama, says, well, from now on, no citizen will have the possibility to carry weapons because weapons kills and guns are dangerous. And you see all the attacks in the street and all these people that have guns and all these people that are killing people. This is unfair. So no more weapons. The only problem is that weapons, you can get them anywhere, anytime for a certain amount of money. So the only people that will suffer from this decision are the law-abiding gun owners, American citizens. The gangsters will have weapons. The military will have weapons. The cops will have weapons. Our FBI, CIA, now NSA, now even the IRS. Everybody's got weapons except the citizen. So if you don't shut the hell up, we put a bullet in your ass, right?
Yeah, and I think what you're saying about that purpose to protect from government was the original idea of right to bear arms. Now, I'm not saying that the kind of arms that the normal person might have are really that easily confrontational to the gigantic possibilities for weaponry on the part of police state. But it's still the only way to protect yourself. And a militia is a little bit different, though. I mean, militia is more organized. You know, I agree that individuals should have the right to bear arms, but I also think that a well-regulated militia means more than just one person having a gun, and it's perhaps more of a advantage for defense purposes. My impression has always been that if there is some kind of tyranny that actually, I'm trying to be careful the way I say this, okay? So I'm saying if there is a tyranny that actually becomes a threat to liberty on the scale that it might, it ain't going to be so easy. No, it's not going to be so easy for either the terrorists or anyone else because there are well-regulated militias.
Because they are Second Amendment, and this is a gun culture.
Yeah, well, I don't think it's possible that they will successfully, even if they eliminated the amendment, I don't think they would eliminate the guns. I not in this country. I don't think so. And I'm not particularly interested in guns or anything like that. But I just happen to think that
if you have a neighbor who knows how to use it, you'll feel safe.
Well, anyway, as a matter of fact, I want to go back to our musical direction for a second. And I think it's appropriate that we play a song that sort of sums up the way we feel about things now. It's called "Fooled Me."
Everybody wants your attention. Everybody wants your blood. just a game. Yes, they were led to believe that whatever they do it right. So get it right. To believe that tomorrow will be their Shangri-La. Yes, they were led to believe happiness is here to get it now. So get it now. When all they wanted was a little fun, an early morning ride under the sun. Working for the men from 8 to 6. Then they're rushing home to get their fix. So they feel good, safe and happy. They could have fooled me. They could have fooled me. To believe that one day from the sky will come the truth. Yes, they were led to believe that just another push we get them through. So get it through. When all they wanted was a little fun, an early morning ride under the sun. They work for the men from 8 to 6. Then they're rushing home to get their fix. All they wanted was a little fun, an early morning ride under the sun. They're working for the men from 8 to 6. So they feel good, safe and happy. They could have fooled me. 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 They could have fooled me.
Obama originally promised to have the most open and transparent administration in American history. He said that, but he said it really clearly. I played it before on other programs. It was the most clear statement. It is obvious that most media who are concerned about this promise are quite disappointed to see something of the opposite. What did you say, inversion? Now, I'm going to do a little bit of a long quote here, a few times here. I'm going to quote from an article called The Obama Administration in the Press, published by the Committee to Protect Journalists and written by Leonard Downey, Jr., with reporting by Sarah Rafsky. It says, quote, the Obama administration's Washington government officials are increasingly afraid to talk to the press. Those suspected of discussing with reporters anything that the government has classified as secret are subject to investigation, including lie detector tests and scrutiny of their telephone and email records and insider and email records. An insider threat program being implemented in every government department requires all federal officials to help prevent unauthorized disclosures of information by monitoring the behavior of their colleagues. 6 government employees plus 2 contractors, including Edward Snowden, have been subject to felony criminal prosecution since 2009 under the 1917 Espionage Act, accused of leaking classified information to the press, compared with a total of 3 such prosecutions in all previous U.S. administrations. Considering the president had promised the most, quote, open and transparent administration in U.S. history, this seems to be quite a contradiction. How many of these specific actions curtailing freedom of the press and the access of the American people to good reporting and a semblance of truth and reality is going on right now in this country?
Well, first of all, it's 6 major corporations that own all of the media in this country. It's the same corporations that privately own all of the prisons in this country. So what does that tell you right there? The media, the mainstream media, other than independent, internet rebels who have the truth, speak the truth. And now, thank God, even though the internet has hurt the music business, the internet's the reason that we have this resurgence of patriotism and people being fed up because they're able to get the truth. All these many years, up until now, we haven't had the truth. So the media is about being a propaganda machine. It is not about telling the truth. And anyone who gets into journalism is very quickly disappointed when they discover that they're not allowed to say what they have found out. And anyone who does loses their job. So more and more people are figuring this out.
And if they lose their job and that's all, it's okay. Most of them are killed.
Yeah. So things like, there have been a couple of, broadcasters on television who have spoken out and lost their job. But if you look at the people who watch the shows, their audience profiles for CNN and MSNBC and ABC and CBS, all those things,
and Fox,
way down. People are not paying any attention to them anymore because they're tired of the lies and it's insipid. There was a very funny thing that Jon Stewart, the late night show host, put together. He compiled a bunch of news broadcasters reporting exactly the same thing, using exactly the same words in a very insipid story. And he must have had at least 20 of them in a row. And it was about Easter. So it kind of went like this. Hey, guys, well, the weather's a little crazy tonight, so I don't know if the Easter bunny is going to make it with his eggs tomorrow, kind of thing. And he showed 20 different broadcasters, because this came from AP. They take the same news story and they regurgitate it. It's not written by the people in the show. They're not allowed to do that. And recently, many journalists around the world have been admitting that, they write for a particular newspaper or whatever it is. They say, we are doing the work for the CIA. We're under their control. It's putting out disinformation. And until, so if my frustration with trying to spread the word of the truth and to get people, because that's all it will take for us to have our freedom back. We all have to understand what's going on and say, we're not taking it, But the biggest frustration is that people, they just think I'm crazy. They won't listen.
Hey, what about me? They think I'm crazy too.
Well, yeah, of course.
What you have to do is you have to energize a small fragment, but that fragment of population, but once that fragment is energized, it has enormous power, particularly in the area now, just to go back to it, of the primary elections, where sometimes there is just a handful of people voting. I'm not talking about presidential primaries, but normal primaries, even ones for, state or national positions in Congress. But you mentioned the AP, but I would like to read this to you, this little example here about the freedom of the press, or the lack of it. From the article I just mentioned, about an action taken by the Justice Department regarding a leak that informed an Associated Press story about a covert CIA action in Yemen. On May 13, 2013, the Justice Department informed the Associated Press that 3 months before it had initiated a secret subpoena and seized all records for, quote, 20 AP telephone lines and switchboards for April and May of 2012. The records included outgoing calls for the work and personal phone lines of individual reporters for AP News Bureau lines in New York, Washington, and Hartford, Connecticut, and for the main AP phone number in the press gallery of the United States House of Representatives. Although 5 AP reporters and an editor were involved in the May 12, 2012 Yemen story, quote, thousands upon thousands of news gathering calls by more than 100 AP journalists using newsroom, home, and mobile phones were included in the seized records. AP President Gary Pruitt said in an interview with CBS News Face the Nation television program, quote, there can be no possible justification for such an overbroad collection of the telephone communications of the Associated Press and its reporters, end quote. Pruitt wrote in a letter of protest to Attorney General Holder, quote, these records potentially reveal communications with confidential sources across all the news gathering activities undertaken by the AP during a 2-month period, provide a roadmap to AP's news gathering operations, and disclose information about AP's activities and operations that the government has no conceivable right to know. And this goes along with the First Amendment, saying protecting specifically the freedom of the press. One of the few times that specific industry is mentioned in this kind of way in the Constitution, because it's so important, and it's been destroyed.
Destroyed, absolutely destroyed. There's no vestigial remains of what it ever was in the beginning, and these poor journalists, they are told, you can't run that, you can't run that, you can't do that, no, you can't do that. Everything goes through the CIA. The CIA controls the dissemination of information and the spin.
Well, now I want to, there's so much we have to cover, and I'm going to go to another subject, and this is an amazing one too. I had mentioned that I saw recently The Big Short. And The Big Short is about the 2008 financial crisis, and I'm going to just read a few things related to that. The Occupy movement itself began as a reaction to the 2008 financial crisis. Most people would say that it's widely recognized that this crisis was the result of Wall Street greed, malfeasance, and fraud. Now, according to a website called Occupy Arrests, there were 7,705 arrests, 7,775 arrests up until June 24, 2018, since the movement began on September 17, 2011. 7,800 arrests. But how many big bankers were arrested during this crisis? Here's a fascinating discussion by a former bank regulator who handled the savings and loan industry debacle in the 1980s. Joshua Holland interviews him in Moyers & Company's website. Joshua Holland says, to date, a few loan officers, small fish, have been convicted of various offenses related to the financial crisis, but none of the big bankers have faced any charges. Some people, I will say on the side here, say that there has been at least one, but not too big. And it's not that the government has been losing cases in the courts. There's simply been no concerted effort to prosecute these guys. Can you contrast that with what happened during the savings and loan scandal of the 1980s, and also give us your sense of why this has been the case? So this former regulator, William Black, says, sure, the savings and loan debacle was 1/70th the size of the current crisis, both in terms of losses and the amount of fraud. In that crisis, the savings and loan regulators made over 30,000 criminal referrals and has produced over 1,000 felony convictions in cases designated as major by the Department of Justice. But even that understates the degree of prioritization, because we, the regulators, work very closely with the FBI and the Justice Department to create a list of the top 100, the 100 worst fraud schemes. They involve roughly 300 savings and loans and 600 individuals, and virtually all these people were prosecuted. We had a 90% conviction rate, which is the greatest success against elite white-collar crime in terms of prosecution in history. In the current crisis, that same agency, the Office of Thrift Supervision, which was supposed to regulate, among other things, Countrywide, Washington Mutual, and IndyMac, which collectively made hundreds of thousands of fraudulent mortgage loans, made zero criminal referrals. The Office of the Comptroller of the Currency, which is supposed to regulate the largest national banks, made zero criminal referrals. The Federal Reserve appears to have made zero criminal referrals. It made about three about discrimination. And the FDIC was smart enough to refuse to answer the question, but nobody thinks they made any material number of criminal referrals. Now, of course, this is a travesty of justice. In my mind, though the events during the occupation movement, which by my estimation, this is me talking, was one of the tamest types of protests with little or no real ideological or persuasive political objectives, produced voluminous arrests. The government's response through police action was a chilling act of repression of speech and the freedom of assembly. We now appear to have free speech zones, and there's no more room for true protest, which is a sacred right of our citizens, in my opinion. So we have an outrageous attempt to repress our basic freedoms accompanied by an equally outrageous willingness to look away from the criminal actions of the financial sector in endangering the entire global economy. How badly are these freedoms hurt by now? What do you say?
Yeah, it's all about the control. It's we can get arrested for the slightest little things that are, it's a totalitarian tyranny that we are living under. It has already begun. It's not completely strangled the life out of us, but
it started January 1st, 2011.
Yeah.
But how massive could you get the 2008 thing, which may be a small shadow compared to what may happen now financially, but still in all, it was a gigantic effect. And they had no arrests, no real, yeah, maybe they had a few arrests, but no big bankers. What do I think? Exactly what you said, a control. They have downsized all elements of the prosecution of injustice that would hamper their control.
The banks are the bankers, the big guys at the top in the big banks, including the Fed. They run the world. This is the shadow government. It's not, our president is their puppet. He's really good at carrying out their evil deeds, so he must be going along with it for his own ideologies, but it's the banks. So, of course, the banks aren't going to put themselves in trouble and get prosecuted. And if for some reason somebody slips up and takes something to court, the Supreme Court justices, they're not very effective anymore. It seems to me that the judiciary is bought and paid for
by the bankers.
They rule in favor of the banks and the huge corporations.
Sure.
Look at Monsanto. They get to do anything they want. They can't even be prosecuted. It's written into the bill. They wrote their own bill, and Congress passed it without even reading it. So that's one example. But we are governed by the big banks and the big corporations. It has nothing to do with our government. Our government's been hijacked, and now our representatives are working for those guys.
Well, I like the word corporatocracy, although it's hard to pronounce. But I do think that, I'm not saying that is the absolute core of everything, but I think that is the most conspicuous manifestation of this control, and that would include the financial sector. So just because we've been under such stresses talking about these things, I want to play another instrumental by Zave, a very smooth one called Blue by You. In terms of individual freedom, what greater insult to the American people's intelligence and love of freedom was the extraordinary and ongoing efforts to utilize mass surveillance on every American, ranging from emails and phone calls to metadata collection. Whatever the form of warrantless surveillance, is this not one of the most serious attempts to not only invade our privacy by conducting constitutionally illegal search and seizures, but also with an untold chilling effect on the freedom of speech to be entertained privately? What do you think?
Absolutely. It's part of the control. And the NSA mass surveillance, although it affects all of us, most people say, well, I have nothing to hide. If they're listening to my conversations, it's going to be really boring. I'm talking about the weather and recipes with my mom, But what their biggest target is to have all of this metadata collected on all of our representatives and people in the government and the military, so that for control purposes. We have heard from a Clinton insider, someone who worked with the Clintons for 10 years, many years ago, and when he saw how corrupt they were, he had to get out of there. And
you want his name?
Larry Nichols.
Oh, I know who Larry Nichols is, yes.
And so he said that, in his opinion, Hillary will not be indicted because everyone in Congress will stop that from happening. If they have to approve it, they're not going to approve it because she has dirt on everyone in Washington, D.C. And if she goes down, she's taking everyone with her, everyone. And that's really what this surveillance is about. It's not so much for the little guys like you and me. What are they going to do to us? I mean, if we committed a crime, then they could go back in and, they'd have all our data so that they could find proof of the crime we committed. But if we're, good people and we're not breaking any laws, we really don't have anything to hide. But I don't like the idea of this surveillance. And so I think for the people, it's up to us to protect ourselves from the surveillance by not having smart TVs. Don't have smart anything in your house. No smart meters, no smart light bulbs, because they're all communicating with each other and recording everything that's going on. Yeah. Our appliances, it's crazy. So if we don't like that amount of surveillance, and again, Zave and I aren't doing anything wrong, but we're anti-establishment, so that might not be a good thing. But, it's not like we're out there, with our Uzis, killing people. We want a peaceful political revolution, not a bloody one. I mean, if we have to protect ourselves from ISIS, some blood's going to flow. Absolutely, that will happen. But we're not sitting around the house talking about how we're going to go and assassinate our bad leaders. What I'd like to see is to have them all arrested.
Well, perhaps there are a few that we might not arrest, but
yeah, no, there are some good people who are really, really struggling to keep our system working the way it was meant to be by our forefathers. But that's the real deal with the surveillance. And so we don't have any of those curly Q light bulbs. They're very bad. They communicate data, and they're also carcinogenic. So people they really have to look at more deeply into these things, and they don't, because they're connected to their iPhones and they don't care.
When is the last time you bought some light bulbs?
Last week.
Okay, what did you get?
Well, I don't know what it's called, but it was one of those 9-year things.
Is it a curly Q or
curly Q, yeah.
So the bad ones.
Could you buy anywhere a regular light bulb?
Yes.
Where?
Same place.
Well, there are some.
I mean, I'm not sure what you mean. I mean, this was a regular supermarket, and it had mostly, I would say at least half or probably more like 3/4 were regular light bulbs, like 3-way or one, just a bulb.
They have tried to remove those as much as possible. Sometimes, I go to the store to buy light bulbs, and I have to go to several stores sometimes to find the old-fashioned, quote, regular light bulbs.
Just a filament, yeah.
Well, how in fact does that work?
I'm not able to explain the technology.
Do you remember when the internet, what year was that? 97, 98, Windows 97, Windows 98, Google in 1998, GoDaddy in 1998. So all this technology that was already being built for surveillance. Do you remember you had a choice to either use an internet connection or you could get an IP address from the power lines? Do you remember that? Data over power line?
No, I don't remember that.
Check out this technology. Everybody in their home has electricity. Every outlet or meter in a house could be an IP address. If you use all the wiring electricity to send data over the power lines, you have right there an internet system.
Okay.
The industry decided not to go through data over power lines and use the telephone system. And I thought when this technology came out in the public to choose for a couple of months, I went like, this is brilliant. This is absolutely brilliant. You use the power lines, you go anywhere you want at the speed of electricity. It's brilliant. Removed, gone. But it still exists for the spy system. The new television, what they call smart TVs, spy on you. They have microphones and cameras watching you. Every new appliance that is a smart appliance is hooked to the grid, whether it's a washing machine, a refrigerator, even the oven, and all of them, all the smart appliances are linked to the grid through the data over power lines. So the microphones are created with light bulbs. The light bulbs that are now sold, have a gas in it that resonate and capture vibration. And this data is sent to a server through the power line. It's a smart. So the surveillance is everywhere. Now, new cars. In the last 5 years, car manufacturers were mandated to install black box in the cars. This is why we have a
25-year-old car.
26-year-old Mercedes. No new car for us. The new cars are computer-driven. They can regulate the speed you're at. They can record data of where you went, how fast you went, in situation where you were not supposed to go fast. So whether there's a cop or not, all the data of your transportation is recorded in a black box that could be accessed by the FBI, the cops, or the insurance companies.
Is that public information?
The public doesn't know shit about nothing. But if you want this information, I can give it to you.
Well, it's available on the internet. It's not in mainstream media. Doesn't talk about any of this stuff.
I meant, could it be found? Well, I'm going to go into another area here. This is something you know a lot more about than I do as well. And you're concerned, I know, about something called Common Core, or what is formerly, I think, called Common Core, the State Standard Initiative. Before we get into it, let's play the song you wrote about it, which is why I know that you're interested in it. Sometimes a melody is worth more than 1,000 words.
My 5th grade teacher told me to always choose C when I did not know the answer.
Of a brilliant future, selling us on Common Core as the ideal for American culture. Just a hoax to dumb them down and keep our kids in confusion. But when they lose their minds, 'cause there's no solution, lost in false reality, there's no constitution. Common Core to you is a no, not on our watch, so back up and go. Common Core to you is a no, not on our watch, so back up and go. Go, 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 go. It's really old and it's just outdated. Day by day and night by night, eroding our freedom. They use their money powers to protect their kingdom. Come and cry to you, we said no. Not on our watch, so back up and go. Come and cry to you, we said no. Not on our watch, so back up and go.
We cannot sit back and wait till the Common Core is fully implemented on state testing.
It is not a state initiative. It was not developed by educators. It is not going to better prepare students for college or real-world applications.
Come and call to you, we said no. Not on our watch, so pack up and go. Come and call to you, we said no. Not on our watch, so pack up and go.
It is part of a century-long process of using the education system to mold students into more obedient workers and tax cattle.
Come and call to you, we said no. Not on our watch, so pack up and go. Come and call to you, we said no. Not on our watch, so pack up and go. Go. Go, go, go. Go. Go, go, go.
And it is promoted by billionaires with hidden agendas of their own.
Okay, give us a bit of interpretation of the lyrics of your song.
You have to understand that the education is part of the mind control and the dumbing down. Can you see that?
Yes, of course. It was part of that a long time ago, though, and it's not new.
It's just getting more and more controlled and more dumbed.
Yeah,
down.
I had a teacher this was in the 60s who would regularly turn over kids to try to turn them over to the authorities or to the principal or something because they were communists. And that was really laughable. But she controlled the, what all the teachers in, say, social studies taught. And I remember Mr. Lieberman used to keep a separate book. In other words, he'd create his own curriculum, a separate curriculum book, and never show it to her. And all his kids knew it, and they never told her.
Very good. Now, you take a generation from age 2 to 18. The mom has to go to work because she's part of the feminist movement. So she has to go back to work. By achieving this, you break up the family. The mom has to go back. She will pay taxes, and the kid will be raised by somebody else. Now, preschool, they take the kids younger and younger because mommy has to get back to work at her slave work because they need to pay taxes. So the families are exploded. The father is no longer the chief and protector of the family. The mother rules, but the mother has to work, and the mother is tired. The mother suddenly doesn't have the time to spend with the kids. The dad is no longer the strong man in the household and is being sent to the garage to sweep around and watch television and have a beer. In the background, you have a kid who's 2 years old or 3 years old and starts preschool. In the background of the preschool, you're going to have music, you're going to have TV, you're going to have messages that are controlled by the education because you have to have a permit to do this. So under the guidelines of education, as a preschool owner, you can play this type of program, but not these kinds of programs. So you are okay with this, but not that. Nevertheless, you have people who are licensed to raise children, and their license is given to them if they play ball. Then at age 5 or 6, you enter kindergarten. So the children enter kindergarten with already 2 years of preschool. And the concept of brainwashing, dumbing down has started. Now they enter school, and the Common Core is designed to confuse the minds. It's designed to misinform and misguide the reasoning of the brain into the child, to the point that when he reaches the age of 18, he has no idea what math is. He does not understand what's an equation because it doesn't work. He cannot add, subtract, divide.
So tell me how this is done.
Well, by teaching people that 2 + 2 = 5.
That is literally a math equation on a Common Core homework, because it's sort of kind of around 5.
Wow.
But it's not 2 and 2 = 4. No, it's not only 4, but it could be 5 or 3.5, because life is not perfect. And, a perfect number is not always exact. Sometimes you have to extrapolate. So we're going to do 2 + 2 equals what? Well, 2 + 2 = 5. That is 4 + 1, because the +1 and it's like, what the heck are you talking about?
And the lie behind this is, well, we want to teach children more conceptually than in absolutes. But what they're actually doing is creating so much confusion in the thought process that these children grow up and they become completely incapable of critical thinking. They don't want critical thinkers. Education now is an indoctrination center where they turn out, by the time a child graduates at the age of 18, their goal is to create obedient workers. Don't ask questions.
Tax cattle.
Don't question authority. Here are a bunch of little squares that our society consists of. Which square do you want to fit into? Are you going to be a garbage man? Or are you going to be a dentist? Are you going to be a hairdresser or a teacher or a scientist? What are you going to be when you grow up? And this is how you do it. And don't talk and don't look that way and sit over here and shut up and you can't say that. And oh my God, you bit your croissant into the shape of a gun. You're expelled. It's crazy. So what has to happen to change education has to change at the very fundamental levels. Yes. It's not like we just have to go in and make a better curriculum for this to work. I mean, as far as that's concerned, America is now number 30 in the world in education ratings. We are number 30, which is embarrassing. We used to be number 1.
Yeah, that is terrible.
Now the question is, why do you think that is?
Well, again, it gets down to controlling a population's mindset and abilities, I guess. I mean, it's probably a little bit more complicated than that because there's financial reasons. There's
financial reason. Education is very simple. You're 18 years old. I'm going to send you a dream. The dream is, if you go to college, you're going to get a job. You make 200 grand. You'll have a new BMW. You have a condo in Westwood, and you're going to have all the chicks you want. Oh, this is great. I want that to a job. So cool. So you're going to spend 150 grand for 4 years. And at the end, you owe us 150 grand. Is there work? So what? Well, you go back work with your mom and you start paying your student loan. That's how it works.
Yeah, well, I understand that. My kids are encumbered to a degree. And it's a strange thing. I'd like to...
it's condemning. It's destroying our children's future.
Is it in place now?
Yes.
Yes.
But not in every state.
It's begun. Not
in every state. Florida said no. Tennessee is working on kicking it out. California has adopted it.
Of course.
Is it a private organization that's supported by the government, or is it part of the government?
It's the education system. This is a curriculum that the government is pushing on all the public schools.
But is it owned by the government, or is it private?
It's the Department of Education.
Oh, I see.
If you like Threshold Radio, a program which deals with core issues affecting our personal, political, and spiritual lives, and advocates the creation of an enlightened, informed citizenry, not only in America, but throughout the world, then you might think of supporting both your product and business and our message by advertising on our show. All programs are archived and are supported in various ways, including social media. Our outreach being broadcast weekly on VegasAllNetRadio.com, a very advanced internet broadcasting station, but also archived directly on our websites on YouTube and in SoundCloud. We believe in time we will have a very broad outreach. Through New Galaxy Enterprises, our parent company, we can create a wide range of marketing and advertising components to complement your advertising on Threshold Radio and increase your outreach in many creative and exciting ways. If interested, just go to www.thresholdradio.com and fill out a contact form with your interest. That's www.thresholdradio.com.
We want to thank Zave and Blaze for their participation in our show, Who's Minding the Planet? Turns out this show will be in 2 parts, with the next valuable edition coming up next week. You can find all our shows on YouTube and SoundCloud. You can subscribe to our YouTube program at www.youtube.com/Threshold Radio. Join us in our LinkedIn discussion group by searching for the group Threshold Radio in the search feature in LinkedIn. We will now go out with one of Zave's songs, Believe.
And we mustn't forsake and forget who we are, as our future and past are written in the stars. Every day of our lives we should pray to the sky. We are one, we are love, you and I.
Believe. Stewards of our planet Earth, for all that it is and for all that it's worth. Our mission is clear and it is human's fate to take back the keys to the gate. We're living again through the great fall of Rome, and we really don't know if we'll ever get home. It's a long road ahead, but I know where to start. Stay strong and keep love in our hearts. And we mustn't forsake or forget who we are, as our future and past are written in the stars. Every day of our life we should pray to the sky. We are one, we are love, you and I. Believe. When we finally unite and live here in peace, then the greed and the wars and corruption will cease. But we will see much loss, and for that we will grieve. In the end it is love we'll receive. And we mustn't forsake or forget who we are, as our future and past are written in the stars. Every day of our life we should pray to the sky. We are one, we are love, you and I. Believe. Believe. When we create the magic in the air, you look and feel the crowd around you. And when the wavelength grows stronger between us, don't be afraid to let it go. And we mustn't forsake or forget who we are, as our future and past are written in the stars. Every day of our life we should pray to the sky. We are one, we are love, you and I. And we mustn't forsake and